Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's 2:59. Really appreciate everybody making time to attend today. Going to give everybody just a couple more minutes to hop on, and we will begin shortly. Good afternoon, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us today. We're going to give everybody just one more minute to hop on, and we'll get started real shortly here. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 3:01. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today for this NASPO webinar, Small Business Crisis Response, a discussion with the KYPTAC. As we begin, we have a few housekeeping notes. All the lines have been muted for today's presentations, although attendees will have the opportunity to ask questions through the Q&A feature. There's a little Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen that will allow you to interact with us during the presentation. You can use this feature to ask our presenters questions in real time. We're also going to have time at the end of the presentation for Q&A. So if you think of questions throughout, again, please use that Q&A function and feel free to ask whatever questions you need. Today's webinar is eligible for one UPPCC credit hour. So to receive that the certificate at the end of that hour, please email naspowebinar@naspo.org, and that's up there too. We'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you too. You can also request a recording of this presentation, slide deck, presentation materials, as well as contact info for myself and for the presenters. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you will be asked to complete a very short survey. It's about 6 questions. Provide some feedback. This is extremely helpful for us to improve the quality of the information that we are getting out to you guys. We really need to hear from you guys so that we can improve these webinars, or if it's something that you like, you want us to keep doing, we want to hear about that as well. It's going to pop up in the window immediately after the presentation. It's very convenient and quick, and we really hope that you will answer those questions for us quickly. Okay, today, learning objectives and sort of a brief overview of how the presentation is going to go. The introduction is what you're in now, so congratulations, you made it past that. We're going to talk about what a PTAC is, what they do for businesses, what they do for governments, how you can find PTAC, how to collaborate with PTACs. And then again, we're going to have question and answer, as well as general housekeeping at the end. So with that, I will stop sharing and allow our first presenter, Sherry Savage, to take over. Sherry, been a program manager for the Procurement Technical Assistance Program, that's PTAP, at the Defense Logistics Agency since 2016. She is responsible for oversight of the agency's administration and the Cooperative Agreement Program that aims to expand the number of businesses capable of participating in government contracts. Prior to her current position, Ms. Savage served the federal government in a variety of grants and contracting officer positions. Sherry, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. My chart is not switching. There we go. Today I'm going to give you a strategic overview of the Procurement Technical Assistance Program. I'm going to show you where you can find a PTAC all throughout the U.S. and what kind of services you can expect from PTACs in general. I'm going to tell you why it's in their best interest to help you and how you can help them. The Procurement Technical Assistance Program was established by Congress 35 years ago to increase the number of large and small businesses that could participate in government contracts. They focused primarily on DoD contracting back then, but the program was so popular and it provided so much assistance to businesses that it was expanded in the 1990s to include all U.S. governmental agencies. So PTACs can now help with city, state, and federal government contracting. DLA's part in managing this program is to assist the PTACs in providing their education and technical support to businesses, as well as provide them payment. We award cost reimbursable cost sharing agreements, which you could think of as grants, to states, local governments, nonprofit entities, and tribal Indian tribes, Native American tribes, and no PTAC award goes to any for-profit entity so that they are not competing with businesses for government contracts. The entities that receive our awards have to pay a share of the cost of operating their PTAC. So federal government provides 60% of the funding. In most places, your average U.S. cities, but in the distressed areas, those areas with high unemployment or low income are eligible to receive 75% of the cost of their award. And since these recipients pay a share of the cost of operating their PTAC, they get some latitude in deciding what kind of services they are going to focus on. So although DLA puts out terms and conditions that requires a minimum standard of support to businesses, the recipients themselves, the PTACs, they get to decide where they want to focus their energies. So that's what Darrall at the Kentucky PTAC will tell you later, exactly what the Kentucky PTAC focuses on. PTACs aren't a very lucrative proposition. Nobody's getting rich by receiving these federal government awards. The maximum share a PTAC can receive for providing service across their entire state is $1 million. PTACs can also choose to serve one or more county within their state, and we do have many PTACs that only cover a couple counties, and that's because their county government is providing the cost sharing, and so it's in their vested interest to provide their tax dollars to cover their counties. So that's why some PTACs only cover a few counties and some PTACs cover the entire state. This map shows the approximate location of our primary PTAC sites. I noticed as well there is a mistake on the chart. There are not 92 PTACs anymore. Our South Carolina PTAC is currently gone, and we are trying to re-solicit to set up a new PTAC there. So we only have 91 primary locations, but each of those primary award recipients might have several sub-recipients so that they are actually controlling many centers in their state. So overall, we have over 300 locations where you could collaborate with the PTAC, or you could refer businesses for collaboration. And you could see these pins are color coded. So the red pins represent the PTACs that cover the entire state. And when we have a statewide PTAC that is receiving the maximum of $1 million federal funding, we generally don't allow 2 PTACs to be in that state. Some states you'll notice, like, please draw your attention to Montana. Montana has a statewide PTAC, and it also has an American Indian PTAC. The American Indian PTACs provide specific service to Native American owned businesses. That could be Native Hawaiian, Native Indian, and they cover a much larger region that is the Bureau of Indian Affairs regions. So if you have an American Indian or a Native Hawaiian company that wants to get some specific assistance with their government contracting, those are very good PTACs to refer them to. You will see some states have many of our smaller regional PTAC centers: California, Texas, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania. They do not have a statewide PTAC in those states because there was no entity that wanted to operate a center covering the entire state. So instead, they have many regional offices. We like to think of the PTACs as the bridge between the buyer and supplier, because they help the buyer sell their goods to the government, and they help the government buy those goods from the buyer. So we think of them as bridging the gap. PTACs provide, this is the generic list of the services that we expect from all PTACs, and it is all government contracting related. So we expect them to help with contracts with DoD, with other federal agencies, as well as with state and local governments. And we really appreciate when PTACs help with those state and local government contracts, because many times those are smaller dollar value and less complicated, because perhaps their delivery is closer to their home location, so there's not as much difficulty and complexity when they're doing the state and local government contracts. So the businesses gain some experience at a smaller scale with lower risk before they take on a DoD contract that's high risk, maybe very large dollar value. So it works very well for the PTACs to be involved right at the smallest, maybe your government purchase card level with your state contracts. The PTACs help the businesses by identifying prime and subcontracting opportunities. Many of them subscribe to data mining software, so they are tuned in to which primes contracts are due for renewal. They can advise the businesses about those primes processes, maybe the application process to become a sub to a certain prime. The PTACs are experts on the procedures and the requirements, clauses, regulations. They can help businesses with procurement registration systems or payment systems. I'm not certain if every state has a different payment system, but I am sure that there is a lot of variety there. So if you were to partner with your PTAC, you could teach them about your procurement requirements, and then they can amplify your message out through your business community. The PTACs will sit with the businesses and help them prepare the bids and proposals. They cannot help the business with pricing, but they are experts at detecting whether or not the business has met all the requirements. They understand the terms and conditions, and they understand how important it is to make sure that they have met every single requirement that's included in the solicitations. And so they'll provide another set of eyes to help the business make sure that they cross all their T's and dot their I's. PTACs host many events, and they facilitate introductions and provide collaboration opportunities with government to business, business to business. Just in general, they are really great event hosts, and they facilitate those introductions that are so important to conducting business. I see I have a question. Someone asks if PTACs track the dollars awarded to the businesses they assist. I'm so glad you asked that question. We absolutely do, and I'm going to touch upon that on the later chart. PTACs also host events across state lines by collaborating with other PTACs and with government agencies. We recently had, well, recent, it was a couple years ago now, but we had our Colorado PTAC collaborated with a federal agency in Huntsville, Alabama for a procurement that was going to involve construction at facilities across the entire northwestern United States. And the PTAC collaborated with many PTACs in the Northwest, and the contracting staff from the Huntsville agency simply flew into the Colorado PTAC's location, and they live streamed a pre-solicitation conference to all those states, to all those sub-locations within those states. So they were able to interest 200 new small businesses in participating in their procurement, with the very, very minimal cost to the government. Other ways the PTACs can partner with the government is they have a grassroots knowledge of your local small businesses. They can collaborate with you for outreach. They can team with you for very specific assistance. For example, the live stream pre-solicitation conference I just mentioned. They could host events for you to conduct matchmaking. They are really spinning up on cybersecurity because DoD is undertaking a very large initiative to get all of our vendors cyber secure. So almost anything that is contracting related that you want your businesses to know, you can collaborate with your PTAC to bring that information to your industrial base. PTACs do have some prohibited activities. Because they are not for-profit entities, they are prohibited from earning profit. They also can't charge the clients for any of the counseling. They are allowed to recoup the costs for providing food at events, and they are allowed to recoup the costs of providing facilities. So the federal government will reimburse them for those items, but otherwise everything that they do for businesses is at no cost. PTACs are not allowed to represent specific businesses to the government. So for example, they could not act on the behalf of any one of your clients to, for example, reach out to you for a debriefing on one of your procurements. The PTAC is allowed to accompany a client or be on the phone with the client, but the PTAC is not a representative of any specific business. PTACs are also prohibited from performing any task that doesn't contribute to the business's ability to perform on government contracts. So sometimes, because PTACs are experts in these contracting related processes, the government agencies ask the PTAC to come train the government employees. And the way that we work around that so that we can satisfy the government as well as live within our statutory limitations is we have the PTACs host training for their business community, and they invite their government partners in to receive the training at the same time as their business. PTACs are not allowed to counsel on general business type topics such as how to hire employees or how to get a loan to finance my business. They are strictly limited to counseling on government contracting related topics such as processes, points of contact, clauses, laws, anything that the business would need specifically to participate in your contract. We have another question asking if PTACs assist small businesses with bidding on NASPO cooperative type contracts. I am not familiar with NASPO type cooperative contracts, so I'll revisit that one at the end in the Q&A, and hopefully Kevin can bring me up to speed, or possibly Darrell knows enough about that topic to be able to answer your question. But thank you for your question.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we can get somebody, this is Kevin, we can get somebody from NASPA Value Point in touch with the person who asked that question also, if we can't answer it during the webinar. Sherry, we do have one other question
Yes.
before you continue. It was in the chat box. Mr. McCrossan from Texas would like to know, are there size restrictions to the business, are there size restrictions to the businesses assisted by PTACs? And are there any instances of PTACs charging fees to bidders?
There are no size restrictions for businesses to receive assistance from a PTAC. Generally, large businesses want different kinds of support from a PTAC than the small businesses. Small businesses generally want the kind of things that I've already talked about in this briefing. The large businesses usually want help training their subcontractors, and they want help finding subcontractors to meet certain socioeconomic categories that usually the government requires the prime to issue a certain amount of their contract price to different socioeconomic categories of subcontractors. So the primes use their PTACs the same as the government can use their PTACs. PTACs host events collaboratively with a large prime, and during those type of events, usually the prime will have their employees on hand to teach the businesses what is expected of a prime what is expected of one of their subs. And just to give you an example, we have one of our PTACs, it has such tight collaboration with one of the very large defense contractors that the defense contractor has given the PTAC space inside their production facility. So the PTAC office space, one of them, is located in the prime's offices, and then that PTAC is very readily available to counsel those subcontracts with all of their issues. And what was the second part of the question? Is there a limitation to the business size? And what was the other question?
Yes, the other part of the question is, are there any instances of PTACs charging fees to bidders?
Yes. In the past, this wasn't prohibited, and so PTACs did charge varying expenses to their bidders. And when we realized what was happening, that's when we changed the terms and conditions so that it's prohibited practice now. And understandably, the PTACs were trying to raise money so that they could provide even more services to the businesses, but it was DLA's position that they were raising money on the backs of the businesses that Congress put them in place to help. So presently, PTACs do not charge businesses, other than those items that I mentioned to you. And additionally, if a business wants to receive a customized report from their PTAC on its very comprehensive type report, the PTAC can charge for that optional reporting service because the PTACs do pay for that subscription. And that is considered over and above our core terms and conditions. The screen that you're looking at right now is our quarterly performance report. And this is a report that every PTAC has to complete and submit to us every quarter. So every 3 months, they populate these blocks and send it to us. And the most important blocks that I want to draw your attention to are the counseling time block, the participated events block, and the contract awards block. The counseling time represents the number of hours that the PTAC has spent in one-on-one counseling with a specific business. So this doesn't include sending out emails or sending newsletters or hosting webinars. This includes one-on-one dialogue with a business. The participated events block is representing the events such as webinars, in-person training events for groups, group training events. It would include a session like we're having here today. And the criteria for a PTAC to report it is that they have to have involvement in the event. They couldn't, for example, just show a YouTube video and count it as a PTAC hosted event. The other block I want to draw your attention to is number 15. If you can see that tiny print on the form, it's contract awards by state and local governments. And that's the block where PTACs can report the number of contracts that their clients received from state and local. We don't receive the information to any greater degree of detail than what you see here. If you wanted to know specifically what your local PTAC's clients were receiving from state and local governments, I think that would be something that you could engage with your PTAC and ask them for. I'm not positive that they would have it because their tracking database is collecting data to populate this particular form. Although I know many of them do have stakeholders within the state and county governments, so they very well could be collecting that data. And Darrell can weigh in on whether or not he's a program manager, so he would know what exact data his database is collecting. But that would be something that you could ask your local PTAC to provide for you. Now, the categories that are asterisk have the asterisk: new client, counseling time, and participated event. Those are blocks that we negotiate with the PTAC and they become part of their award. So we actively negotiate with them to make sure that they are meeting our expectation for the quantity of work that they're doing, and we assess the new client statistics reported to us so that we can see if new people are coming to their PTAC or if perhaps it's stale for some reason or another. How you can help your PTAC help businesses and help you. It would be really great if your teams would share information with your PTACs. When the PTAC is able to provide forecasts and procedural information to industry, it adds to the value that the PTACs are providing, and it spreads your message out to the industry and ultimately should make your job easier as your client or your businesses are of a higher quality and are able to comply with your needs on the first try. I see I have another question. How does one find out if our own office is the PTAC or who is the PTAC in our state? I'm going to give you the link to the DLA PTAC locator on the last page in my chart deck. And Darrell has listed another way for you to find that information. But the simplest way is to Google PTAC. Just Google PTAC and your state name, and it will very likely populate your PTAC location or locations. I have another question from Mr. Pennington. I was the director, chairman of the Colorado PTAC Board of Directors. When we referred clients to other state PTACs, we found there was a variation among PTACs in terms of client satisfaction. That is true. I would agree. Do you share any of the performance metrics among PTACs? Some, yes, some we do. At the time I was involved, ending in 2016, performance data wasn't shared. The performance data that we share with PTACs is the compiled statistics of how many counseling hours and how many events the PTACs have provided, and the total cost that those services cost. So we calculate a cost per counseling hour so that we can assess whether or not the PTACs are operating efficiently across the board. But absolutely, there is some variation in the way PTACs operate, and consequently, there's variation in the satisfaction. There's also a large variety in expectations. So on my next chart, I think in a future chart, I will share with you a little bit more about that. Another thing that, another way that you could really help the PTAC program is to recommend that your primes work with them to educate their small business subs. So anytime you can reach out and collaborate with the PTAC and share your information, whether it be training the PTACs on your processes, what are the trends that you're seeing in your solicitations? Maybe the PTACs can help your businesses populate a form correctly. Maybe it's as simple as they're not filling out safety forms the way that you need them filled out, and you can collaborate with your PTAC to have an event to provide that training to businesses. And here is the DLA Small Business PTAP. We're part of the DLA Small Business Programs. It's not an indication that PTACs are for small businesses, but we are part of the Office of Small Business Programs. That is the URL for our website, and there's my contact information. I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions after the fact. And the YouTube link is a video that I hope you will share widely with your industrial base. It's information about what PTACs do for businesses, and it's only 4 minutes long. So I'm going to pass this over to you, Darrell, and Darrell is going to give you the tactical view of what a PTAC can do. So over to you, Darrell. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks very much, Sherry. Really appreciate that. We have a couple more questions for Sherry, but in the importance of time, we're going to move along onto Darrell's presentation. We'll make sure to share that link to that video too. So if anybody would like to see that, you can email us and we'll make sure we get that to you.
Thank you.
Darrall Henderson, Ph.D., is the state director of the Kentucky Procurement Technical Assistance Program. That's PTAC. He has years of experience in leadership and business, ranging from the boardrooms to operations throughout the world, and is passionate about helping Kentucky businesses grow. Prior to taking over the state director for the Kentucky PTAC, Darrall worked in information systems and as a consultant, which is a consultant firm that provides strategic planning, enterprise resource planning, and change management advice for small and medium-sized companies. Darrall?
Thanks, Kevin, and thank you, Sherry, for the intro. I'm going to attempt to give everybody a tactical view of what the PTAC does in the state and how we coordinate with Sherry at a national level with other PTACs around the country to not only share clients, but share information and also host collaborative events amongst us. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is get more small business, well, not even more small, but we want more businesses competing in the government domain to provide the government, state, federal, local, with a more robust supply chain. And so any way we can do that, we're going to share clients, we're going to share primes, we're going to share resource partners and get that word out. So my presentation today, I'm going to cover a few things, mostly focusing on how we operate in Kentucky, but what you'll probably find is we're very similar to other states. As Sherry mentioned, we are a statewide program. So I'm headquartered in Lexington, which is kind of in the bluegrass area in the center of the state, but I have counselors throughout the state, and we cover all 120 counties in the state of Kentucky, which is very similar to other state programs. There's a couple interesting questions coming up about how we partner with our state or with local government to fund the PTAC, and if I don't get to that, please remind me in the Q&A, but I'll get to that in a slide in a second. But what I want to do is kind of give you an idea of how we operate, what we do, at least in our program, which is going to be similar to your state, who the stakeholders are in terms of who we service. We don't necessarily just service businesses. Like Sherry said, we will service our resource partners, which include you, the procurement professionals that are looking for lower risk solutions to your supply chain needs. And then a little bit, if we have time, talking about how we've helped some of our businesses pivot in this disaster. I mean, COVID-19 is a pandemic of unprecedented proportions, but we also help in disasters such as flooding, hurricane season, fires, anything you can think of. The government is getting to a fast acquisition cycle, so a lot of our clients want to know how they can get ahead of that and help out their state, local, and federal entities. So with that, I'll jump into what our mission statement is and what we do as a PTAC. Our whole purpose is to coach, train, and equip small, medium businesses to work in the government domain. And like I said, that's in the federal, state, and local. But we also are a resource to connect businesses with opportunities among other businesses. And Sherry mentioned that we work a lot with prime contractors in the federal, state, and local domain to get them access to small businesses or diverse businesses that will help with their small business plan that they have to, on some large contracts, present to the contracting professionals to make sure that they're getting a diverse supply chain. So I like to think of us as that connector to help make sure that our businesses understand what's going on, how they can compete in the federal, state, local domain, but also how our procurement professionals can help understand what the businesses can provide, and also answer a lot of those questions up front that the procurement professionals don't have time to answer. So the more we know about how you procure things at your location, the more we can counsel our clients and save you time going over that same education process with every small business or medium-sized business that comes through the door. Sherry mentioned metrics. I just want to throw out a couple for us from last year, and this is going to be pretty consistent, I would think, across other states that have similar size to us. We do one-on-one counseling. That's our bread and butter. And I've really pushed my counselors to reach out on the phone, get on some kind of a platform technology-wise, or go face-to-face to get to know our clients, because if we know what our clients do, we can better support you as a procurement professional when you're looking for a resource partner or a client to fill some gap that you have in your acquisition strategy. So currently, we're actually this year, this is last year's slide, but we run about 840 active clients. We're up to about 940 now. And since we've been in existence now 3.5 years, we've gotten 2,500 hours of individual counseling per year, each of those years. And training events, we conducted 120 live training events, either webinars, seminars, or matchmaking sessions, or even conferences where we've set that up so that we can have networking events for our clients, procurement professionals, and prime contractors. So one of the things we do is help businesses understand what the government domain market looks like, and we'll help them research so they can figure out, A, if they even want to get into that. Some just don't have the wherewithal or the desire to get into government, but oftentimes once they understand how the government works, they'd like to get into that and provide their services or supplies. So we'll help them look and work on a strategy that fits their capability so that they're not wasting their time. So I like to tell people we kind of meet clients where they are and help them meet the government where the government needs them to be. So how do we do that? We work with multiple resource partners throughout the state. I have a bunch of acronyms here, but your state probably has the same kind of thing. We have the manufacturing, not excellence program, manufacturing MEP program, I'm drawing a blank. But we'll work with them in any state. We have economic development engines that we'll work with. We work with small business development centers throughout the state. We work with the SBA a lot. And area development districts will work with them, but we try and support each of the region's ecosystems directly and understand what that economy needs, and then what our businesses in those economies need to be successful. So as you can imagine, Kentucky, a third of us are in Appalachia, so we have that coal-based economy that's having to pivot to manufacturing. That's a different dynamic than what you get in Lexington, Louisville, Northern Kentucky, where we have transportation, medical, and research hubs. And then Western Kentucky, you have automotive supply chain that's feeding Toyota and Ford. So across our state, we've got a diverse set of industries that we have to help with. And when you throw into the mix Fort Knox, Fort Campbell, Bluegrass Army Depot, Bluegrass Station, we have federal installations that we also help our clients get into that domain. So we'll work with entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are not what you're thinking, young people with skinny jeans. We're talking about small businesses that are trying to move, transition from maybe business to business to government. We'll help them understand what that marketplace looks like. We'll help them understand what state procurement folks are looking at, maybe federal or local. One of the things I didn't mention was, a lot of people ask me, how much of your client base gets federal work versus state, local? For us, last year we had just short of $1 billion in contracts awarded to our clients. And of that, about half was federal, the other half was state, local. And for us, a lot of that state and local work is construction, earth moving, things like that, because the transportation cabinet has the responsibility, at least in Kentucky, for maintaining highways, bridges, dams, and things like that. So we get a lot of work that way. But we also work with the Corps of Engineers, because again, we've got the Ohio River along the whole top half of the state. So all the locks, dams, and things that go with that, we'll work with the Corps of Engineers to help our clients understand how to negotiate that kind of contracting domain. So moving on just a little bit about who our stakeholders are, and I think I've talked about most of them, but I do want to highlight, we do work with startups, we do work with entrepreneurs, but we don't work with them on how to establish a business. I think Sherry made it clear that we don't like to cross lines. We're not allowed to cross lines into what the SBA and the Small Business Development Centers do. So if we have somebody that comes to us and says, I'm a startup, I need help with finances and things like that, we'll refer them back out to the SBA or the SBDC or some other kind of economic helps engine that might be a resource partner in the city, state, local environment But if they do say, I'm interested in finding out how to get registered to work in the government domain, we'll help them get their certifications, we'll help them get their SAM account, we'll help them understand how the government does business. So we do get a fair amount of those, I call them walk-ins, but I like to talk to them and coach them about, well, when you're up and running and ready to do business, this is how the government does business. Come back and see us. But our bread and butter are those established businesses that maybe are looking for a different channel to sell their goods and services. And we'll help them understand how you, as a state procurement professional, do business and what you're looking for, and try and answer questions up front. What's maybe a little bit different about Kentucky, and I know some of the other states will do that, I really like to work with large defense primes, partly because I have a background in that, but also I understand that defense primes, the large ones, really want small businesses, medium-sized businesses to round out their supply chain and give them a more robust and less risky solution to what they're trying to provide to the federal government. So we'll work with them, and we'll also work with state and local municipalities to assist those procurement professionals when they're looking for a diverse supply chain. I just got a call from Fort Knox this morning, and they're looking for an 8A firm to do work on Fort Knox. So we'll go through our database, we'll look for the firms that fit that classification, and we provide that to the small business entity there on Fort Knox, and then they will reach out to those clients directly. So it's a nice relationship. We like to say we'll work with anybody that will pick up the phone, and as long as we're trying to help businesses in Kentucky, that's a good thing. I won't spend much time on this slide, but what I do want to focus on, this is kind of that sliding scale of where we try to pick up businesses where they're actually at the point where they're a viable business, they're ready to work with the government, and they just have questions about how do they do that. So we'll try and connect them with these enterprises, the large businesses on the right that are looking for a diverse supply chain, and transition them from that startup small business into either a subcontractor or eventually they're big enough to be a prime contractor in a state or federal local domain. Let me take a quick breath here and look at the questions. So Kentucky PTAC, one of the questions was, do we provide funding to cover registration fees for small business to participate in vendor fairs hosted by government agencies? We do not. We will refer them to state agencies. The Cabinet for Economic Development actually has grants and things like that. So one of the side businesses we have to understand is where these things are available. We're not there to help them apply for grants, but we do want to point them in the right direction, get those kind of grants like STEP grants and things like that to help them to fund that. But we do not. MEP does have grants like that, and we'll fund them to MEP to, let's say they need to get an ISO certification or something like that. But we do not provide money for that. Okay. Just a couple examples. Sherry had talked about training. So I wanted to give you an idea of what kind of training we do, as well as some of the programs that we do to support our clients and be able to be exposed to different procurement professionals, as well as opportunities in the state, federal, local domain. And I'm not going to read all this to you, but literally we're on GoToMeeting, Zoom, any number of platforms giving webinars on a weekly basis. We host a weekly lunch and learn every Thursday from 11 to 12. I gave 5 webinars last week just for various topics. So we're constantly doing webinars and training on different topics that either our clients need to know about or our resource partners would like to get that word out. So it may be something as easy as how the government does business, or I'm in part 2 of a 3-part series this month in proposal management. So we talked about how proposals need to be broken down, what the team needs to be, the timing, and then we don't do pricing, but we will talk to them about how pricing strategies you need to think through and what's allowable, allocable, and acceptable to the government. So these topics are just a few, but like I said, we did 120 last year, and we'll do those consistently on a weekly basis, as well as some large events that I'll talk about here in the next slide. Okay, I'm taking a second to look at the chat just to make sure. Yes, we'll talk about the CV-19, how we changed our business strategy a little bit in just a second. So here are a couple events and things we've done to connect our businesses with procurement professionals. And I won't read all of them, but as you can imagine, being a state with a big river, the Ohio River, we work closely with the Huntington and the Louisville U.S. Army Corps of Engineers office to get forecast open houses for our clients to come in and be exposed to what those districts are looking for. We work a lot with the Tennessee PTAC because they have a big border with us. And we'll do events together. Our last one was we brought the Veterans Administration procurement folks in at a national level and hosted a half-a-day event to where they talked about, the VA talked about how they do procurement with a panel of experts and several presentations. And the rest of the day was our clients able to access those procurement professionals and talk to them about what their pain points were and then how we could supply or support those gaps. We are a hub zone pilot program, so we work with the SBA, and I won't say fast track, but we're able to really reduce the time it takes to get a hub zone certification from months to weeks if the client's willing to do their homework. And we've done things like host Navy days, any number of things. But most on an annual basis, we bring in the 5 large, now the 4 large defense primes into the state for Aerospace Day and expose them to our client base. And most recently, we brought one prime in with all their subcontracting professionals to talk to 60 of our clients in a day about how to actually get into their supply chain. So we're building those connections over the last 3 years, and it seems to be paying dividends now. So the question was, how have we been pivoting for the COVID-19? Really, the biggest thing for us is the sense of urgency. And like I said, this is it's an unprecedented disaster. I don't want to minimize it, but in a lot of ways, the same problems we have when we have a hurricane, floods, fires, are what's going on with this COVID-19. So we've enhanced our education. We're trying to reach out to our resource partners who are trying to get these PPE in particular, protective equipment. We're trying to link them up with our clients that are able to pivot their manufacturing and provide that equipment locally so that we're not tied to a national supply chain. We've also enhanced our contacts within the state and local links so they can get materials right away, and we're providing that conduit or that connection point where these folks will call the PTAC and say, look, I need somebody that can do 3D printing because I'm trying to do face masks or I'm trying to do shields. Do you have a client that can do that? And so we'll connect them up as well as connect clients to clients. So if we've got one can do the 3D printing, the other can do the fastening, we'll put them together. And also we worked with our other partners to help our clients keep their lines open so they know what those social distancing requirements are to have a safe production facility. And then the last thing I'll talk to about training is we do work with Defense Acquisition University, and this is to Sherry's credit. She kind of negotiated this to get our people and your people access to continuing education on the federal side. So again, these slides will be, this is kind of an eye chart, but this is an opportunity for us as PTAC employees and counselors to get a higher level of education as well as get more information out to you, our resource partners. And the last thing I'll leave you with, and then we'll get to questions, is how do you engage your PTAC? Probably the best thing to do is you can, Sherry gave you the DLA link. If you look at the bottom of my slide in the middle, PTAC, the Association of Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, is our national organization that actually has a little interactive map. So if you go to that aptac.us.org, you'll get to this Find a PTAC, and you can literally click on the states, and it will bring up the points of contact for most, if not all, of the PTACs. So how can you engage? You can engage directly by calling your PTAC. We love talking to procurement professionals because it makes our life easier. You can participate in open houses. We'd love to get our clients to your forecast. you can talk to us about training that would help you. Let's say you're unveiling a new procurement website and you need to get the word out to people how to navigate. We're happy to do webinars and walk our clients on through how to use that. Also, if you're looking for access to supplier diversity, call us. If you need a minority business enterprise or you're not meeting your goals with women-owned businesses or veteran-owned businesses, give us a yell, because of my 900 plus clients that are by definition active, we really have 1,400 total, but 900 of them are what I call active. We've got a pretty robust database of different types of businesses you may be looking at to satisfy goals either in your municipality or the state. So again, our goal is to increase the pool of quality suppliers and to make your job easier so that you can procure things that are low risk, a reasonable price, and can be delivered to you on time. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kevin, and then we'll try and answer some of these questions between myself and Sherry.
Sure. Thank you very much. And we do have about 5 minutes left. So Sherry and Darrell, we do have some questions left in the Q&A box, so we'll address those first. And Sheila, I believe we addressed the COVID, how has COVID-19 changed the business strategy, but does anybody want to speak a little bit more to that?
This is Sherry. I can say one big area that Darrell didn't touch upon, probably because it was so seamless, but the PTACs predominantly stopped providing in-person service, but they are all providing virtual counseling, just the same topics that they would have done before, but now they're doing everything virtually with almost no lost time.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. We kind of saw it coming, so we did a test case with all of my counselors. I just told them work from home because they were schools were going to close, and we did a couple run-ups to that. And then when the governor actually shut down the state, didn't shut it down, but enforced social distancing, we just pivoted to GoToMeeting and Zoom and other platforms to get the word out.
Many of our PTACs are hosted by universities, and the universities have closed, but their PTACs remain open and providing services as they always have to the businesses using email, Zoom, GoToMeeting.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Like many of us are. So Richard Pennington again, and he said you may have answered this, but do either of you want to speak a little bit more to Central Procurement Office and how they can best leverage your capabilities?
Sure. I can grab that, Sherry, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It depends on, so we work with either the state or in our case, the universities or the, I'll use an example of our community technical colleges. We try and work with their central procurement. And again, most of the central procurements, they do large purchases, but they might divest that procurement strategy down to their local entities, either through credit cards or thresholds they might have for purchasing authority. So we like to start at the central, and then if the central wants to push us down to do training to work with their local entities, we'll do that. But again, I don't like to step on toes, so I start with the central folks first, ask them what their pain points are, and then we work with them with the best engagement strategy to get to their local offices.
And Darrell, I want to add from the federal level, I work in an office that is predominantly staffed with small business specialists. DLA's small business specialists are my coworkers and work in my office, and they collaborate with the PTACs by referring businesses to the PTAC for topics. When they see a business needs more help than they have the patience or the time to help with, they will refer them to the PTAC so that that business can get ample face-to-face, one-on-one assistance in whatever it is that they need. And we also use the PTACs to take some of the load off of our small business specialists with regard to the training. When DLA wants to host a big industry day, if the PTACs don't host it for us, then that small business specialist has to find the hotel, handle all the registrations, DLA has to pay for the space, and when we partner with the PTAC takes care of all that for us.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think we have time to just squeeze one more question really quick. Susan would like to know if your database of small business is your database of small business proprietary, and if they wanted to reach out to you for a list of small businesses, would they be able to accomplish that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is sensitive, and our businesses. So short answer is yes, but all these people are in SAM, System for Award Management, so that's accessible through that. But realistically, if you want to reach out to our businesses, all you have to do is call your PTAC. And in a lot of ways, what I'll do is I'll have those central procurement offices or local entities call and say, I'm looking for somebody that can do concrete. Who do you have? And I'll do a database dump and give them the names and the points of contacts, because all of our clients agree that they want this business. That's why they're coming to us. And so we'll facilitate that. But I don't necessarily give these people access to our database, because inside our particular database is a CRM that has a lot of our notes and counseling that we don't really want our resource partners to have access to. But I will share the names, capabilities of the clients, and make sure that they get connected with that purchasing professional, if that makes sense to everybody.
Absolutely. Well, it's 4 o'clock, so we're going to halt there. Of course, you can always email NASPO webinars at naspo.org. It's right up there on the screen. If you have questions, if you would like the slide deck, and if you would like a certificate for continuous education hour or contact hour, please email naspowebinars at naspo.org. We will take care of all that. We can also get you in contact with Darrall and Sherry. Darrall and Sherry, thank you guys so much. This was chock full of information, and I think we needed about 45 more minutes to go over some more information and answer all the questions that we got. So we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us, and we will be back next month with another great webinar. Stay tuned.
Thank you.